So I'm Marco Casalaina. I am VP Products, what we now call Core AI, and my Silicon Valley title, I come from Silicon Valley, California, is AI Futurist. And that's what we're going to do here today. We are going to have a look at the future of AI. And my screen is kind of blank. All right, that's okay because I don't have any slides anyway. Now, before we even get into the fancy agent stuff, and of course we're going to be talking lots about agents. You know, the whole world is talking about generative AI, but generative is not the whole world of AI. There are lots of advances happening in the world of AI that are not generative. Now, I will say that aside from some stuff that I just learned, like Bună dimineața, I don't speak Romanian at all. And yet,
Bună ziua și mulțumesc că sunteți aici cu mine azi. Ei bine, engleza este singura limbă pe care o vorbesc fluent, dar datorită numirii aurului lui, acum vorbit aproape orice limbă cu propria mea voce. Când șoptesc, șoptește cu mine. Când strig, strigă cu mine. Acesta AI va schimba lumea.
so this is our new video translator. And we actually, it's not that new. This video translator has been around for about 9 months now. But what is new about it is that in this video, I used lip sync mode. So here you can see lip sync. And so what this did, obviously it translated me in my own voice into Romanian, but it also changed my lips. And so you can see my lips were moving with the words that I was saying. So that's one thing. Now, also, I have a friend in the U.S. named Bogdan Kriva. Bogdan, as his name suggests, is Romanian. Bogdan is CVP of Fabric. So he's the head of our Fabric division. Fabric, well, in fact, I'm going to let Bogdan himself tell you all about what Fabric is. Now, my version of Teams is a little bit different than your version of Teams. If you use Microsoft Teams, you probably don't have this yet, but you will very soon. So I recently had this conversation with Bogdan.
Hello, Bogdan. Okay, you can't see this, but I am going to turn on my AI interpreter here in Teams, and I'm going to set my interpretation settings so it translates to my language, English. Now, Bogdan, can you tell me a little bit about Fabric and what Fabric is doing with AI?
Certainly. So Fabric is a complete data analysis platform where you will find all Microsoft products for data analysis, starting from data integration to Power BI. Additionally, Fabric is a platform where data is kept in an open format and can be used by your team to use AI technology. We can converse with our data in English or Romanian.
So that's that same technology, but in real time. And so now in Teams, we're starting to roll this out to customers. We announced this just in November at our Ignite conference. This is the AI interpreter that's built into Teams. Now, a couple of things to notice about this. Before I move on here, let me move this back a little bit. Now, when I chose my language, you'll notice that I set my language as English. At no point did I mention that Bogdan was going to be speaking Romanian. In fact, Bogdan could have been speaking any one of 76 different languages, and it would have automatically identified that. And so, now you'll notice that there's a little bit of a delay here. For those of you who are Star Trek fans, in Star Trek they have the notion of the universal translator. And the universal translator in Star Trek means that for all of these aliens, the Klingons, the Cardassians, the Bajorans, the Ferengi, no matter what they say, it's instantly translated to whatever language you speak. Well, for me, that's English. Well, this doesn't really work that way. Because yes, in Star Trek, as soon as the Klingon opens his mouth, he's speaking English. That's not how this goes. In reality, because of differing word orders between different languages, we have to wait a little while for part of the sentence to be over before we can make a competent translation. So here, what you saw is that Bogdan spoke for 3 to 6 seconds in Romanian before it started to render his own voice on top of himself, speaking English. Now some of you may wonder, what did Bogdan hear? What was Bogdan's experience on the other side? Now I will say that right now, we only have 10 destination languages. So that's English and French and Spanish and Italian and Korean, Japanese and Hindi. But Romanian is not one of them. So as it stands right now, you cannot translate to Romanian, but you can translate from Romanian and from Slovenian, as I did with Tomas a couple of days ago, and from many other languages. So we will continue to improve this and add more destination languages soon. But even as it is right now, I think that this can be a revolutionary new technology. And believe it or not, this is not generative AI. These are what we call task-specific models. These are models that are made for speech and for translation. And that allows them to do this very quickly and very cheaply. And that's important. It's important to be inexpensive for an application like this in Teams, where ultimately we can expect to have many millions of users using this simultaneously. Now we will talk about generative AI. And I will say that the way that we're going to interact with AI in the near future is going to change dramatically. Today, you think of AI like ChatGPT. You think of it like you type to it and it types to you. And that's how everybody interacts with AI today, but that will not be true for long. Let's see if this audio is working. Hey, can you hear me?
Da, te aud perfect. Cum te pot ajuta astăzi? Poate vrei să discutăm despre un produs Microsoft? Sau poate ai nevoie...
I guess you went right to Romania then. All right, cool. Can you tell me a little bit about Azure AI?
Sigur, Azure AI este o parte importantă a Microsoft Azure, platforma de cloud computing.
Can you talk faster?
Îmi cer scuze dacă am vorbit prea repede. Azure AI
All right. You know what?
de servicii
Hey, tell me a joke about Microsoft and then laugh at your own joke.
Sigur, ce zice un calculator Windows când se întâlnește cu un calculator Mac? Nu te supăra, dar între noi e clar că eu am mai multe ferestre deschise. Sper că ți-a plăcut.
I have no idea what that joke was, but it probably wasn't good. So I am using the GPT. This is the new GPT-4o mini real-time. These are real-time generative AI models. And what's different about this is, well, we have been able to do speech interfaces for years now. So it's not like this is the first speech interface that ever existed. I mean, you all have Siri or, the Google thing on your phone right now. You can talk to that. But up to this point, it's been kind of a sandwich. You had to have a speech model, and then the large language model, and then another speech model to make this work. And that added latency, and that added error. Now, this type of model is different. This is a direct audio in, audio out model. So there's no translation layer there. When I speak to it, that audio goes directly to the large language model. And even here, I'm not exactly using it correctly. I mean, here I'm using it kind of solely in audio mode. Now, a little bit later, I'll show you something else kind of like this, which is going to be more like where this is going to go. But my point about this is that these models are very capable, and the reason I made it make a joke is to hear it laugh, because it can laugh. And so it exhibits more and more kind of warmth, feeling, more human-like behavior. We're not trying to represent these things as being human, but this does allow us to interact with it much more naturally. All right, now, having said all that, I will, at long last, get into our agent story. So let's talk about agents. I mean, we're going to look at some agents here, and it's going to start here in Copilot. So this is my own Microsoft Copilot, and I use this all the time. Now, what we have added recently to Copilot is up here at the top right corner. This is the agents section of Copilot. And there are a number of agents, and an increasing number of agents, that we have here that are out of the box. One of them is this visual creator here. Can you make this open in a new window? Here, I'll make me a video about tourism in Bucharest, in Romania. And it will totally do that. Now it takes a minute, so I'm going to open up another Copilot here so I can keep going. Fun fact, just before I stepped up on the stage, my computer rebooted itself. And so I had to refresh all my tabs. And so I'm not as ready as I would normally be, but that's okay. So this guy is going to create this video. Meanwhile, we'll go back to this and the agents that are available here. So we have these agents here, and you can get agents from an increasingly large marketplace of pluggable Copilot agents, which I hope in a moment will load here on the screen. There we go. There. So these are a number of agents that our IT department, that Microsoft IT, allows us to use. Meanwhile, let's see. Oh, look, our video's ready. Let's play a little of our video. Let's see what it did.
Bun venit în București, capitala României, un oraș plin de viață, istorie și cultură vibrantă. Aici, fiecare colț ascunde o poveste, fiecare stradă preset.
I think you all know about Bucharest, so I'm not going to tell you too much about that. But the fact is that my agent just made this video. This agent, right now, it's not doing video generation. It is using stock video, putting that together with text-to-speech, and using a large language model to generate what it's going to say. Here. But, back to where I was. Now, I can get these agents, but even as an end user, I can create an agent. So what we see here is a sort of a minimalist version of Copilot Studio that's made for end users. And in here, I can make my own agents. But I can only make a limited form of agent. I can only make an agent based on the powers that my IT has granted to me. And you're going to see this a couple of times now as we go through these agents. This is fundamentally how agents work. This is what differentiates agents from things that you've programmed in the past. Because the way that agents work is you give them powers, and they figure out how to accomplish a task with the powers that you give them. Now, in this minimalist environment, I have a limited set of powers that, in my case, Microsoft IT has given me. So I can give these instructions over here. Now, when it comes to knowledge, there are a set of knowledge sources that my IT department has allowed me. So I could, for example, make something that is able to look up tickets in our ServiceNow system. So I could make an agent that can look that up. But at least in this interface, I can't actually make it file a ticket in ServiceNow because my IT has not given me the ability to give my agent the ability to take that action. So I, as an end user, I can already, right here in M365, and with no code at all, I can create for myself a type of agents here. But, you know, my power there is limited. Now, here I am in the full Copilot Studio. In the full Copilot Studio, don't need that tracing mode right now. In the full Copilot Studio, now here I'm an administrator. So I can do anything over here. And again, you see it. So this is a scheduler agent that I have built before. And in this scheduler agent, well, I gave it some knowledge, and there's all kinds of knowledge that I can give it. I can give it the ability to search the web. I can give it the ability to search SharePoint or Dataverse. I can give it files and stuff like that. Or, wow, that sounds foreboding. All right. Or I can give it actions. And here I've given the actions the ability to do things in Outlook, but let's say that I do want to actually make ServiceNow tickets over here, and I can indeed create a record in ServiceNow or in Dynamics, in Salesforce, or in SAP. So I can give my agent the power to interact with all of these third-party systems. And there are tons of these integrations that are already built in to Copilot Studio. And again, this is a no-code environment, so I kind of create that here. There are also the notion of triggers. Now again, you think of AI as being a chatbot. You type to it, it types to you. And certainly you can use this agent in that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I predict that in the near future, you will have more and more autonomous agents. And an autonomous agent is really just one that is triggered by something. So you can make this agent wake up every day and do something. Or I could say, you know, when an email is sent to a certain box, then wake up and do something. Or when a record is created in Salesforce, then my agent wakes up. So there are all kinds of events that can cause my agent to wake up. And a little later on, I will show you an agent that I built that is triggered like this, that does something crazy. So that'll be fun. But anyway, these are the three fundamental properties of agents. They are knowledge, actions, and triggers. And here in Copilot Studio, as I said, this is the no-code environment. So you build up this whole agent without any code. And that's good and bad. I mean, what's good about it is just about anybody can build this type of agent. The downside is, in a no-code environment, it makes a lot of decisions for you. You don't choose what model to use here. You are limited in general to the set of actions that are already pre-built and that kind of thing. So you don't have here necessarily the full power of code, which gets us to the Azure AI Foundry. Now the Azure AI Foundry, you always know the Azure AI Foundry because there are these view code buttons everywhere where I can do this in Python or C#. I can say, how do I run this agent in code? So the Azure AI Foundry, this is the web interface of it, but really the concept of the Foundry is a set of developer tools that allow developers who understand code to write these kinds of agents. And in fact, I am going to make myself a scheduler agent here also. And in fact, I'm going to give it a tool. So here's what I'm going to do. Now, as I've said before, you give agents powers, and they accomplish the task with the powers you give them. Now, I think when I rebooted my computer, I did not open my calendar. So let me open my calendar, because as I said, I'm making myself a scheduler agent, and it's going to do something in my calendar, which I profoundly hope will actually sign into it. Come on, buddy. You could do this. Outlook. There we go. There we go. All right. Not now. All right. So let's see. My calendar for April is blank right now. I'm picking April for a good reason, as you will see. Now I'm going to give my agent a power. And the power I'm going to give it is actually a logic app. I'm going to give it this logic app right here, and I'll show you what it is and what it does. Because in Azure, we have this thing called logic apps. And logic apps is, you would call it a low-code environment. And it does have the advantage that it also has all of these pre-built blocks, like the ability to create an event in Outlook. But here too, I can totally add other actions, like, again, SAP or Dynamics or Salesforce or ServiceNow or Workday, all of these other things. There are thousands of integrations that are pre-built here in logic apps also. So as a developer, I don't have to code everything, you know? So I gave it some knowledge. The knowledge I gave it is actually my daughter's school calendar. And I've given it this logic app, and that means, let's get rid of this thing. That means that if I say, block off my Outlook calendar for Piedmont, California school spring break 2025, all right, so it's looked at the file, and it has indeed found that spring break is April 7th, 2025. This is true. My daughter's spring break is April 7th, and it's asking me, please confirm if you'd like to proceed. And I will say, proceed. Now, these are all live demos, so you never know, but if all goes well, what we should find in a moment is that my agent will indeed take this action. And lo and behold, it has done it. It is like an hour off, but it has done it. Thank you. And this is what agents do. It's not just about question answering anymore, because that's another thing that people think about AI, is that you ask it a question and it answers the question. It's not just about question answering anymore. This AI takes actions on your behalf, and that makes it vastly more useful than any AI before. Now, what I just made, is a single agent. But you may have also heard of the concept of multi-agents. And so, I have built myself a multi-agent that I'm going to spin up right now. And I built it with our semantic kernel. I'm going to say answer in English and Romanian. Let's do that. All right, let's see. We're going to ask this question. here it is, I just said AI is not for question answering, and then I go answer a question. But what you're going to see, this is a little different than anything you've seen before. Now, what I wrote this for is, well, part of my job at Microsoft is that whenever an analyst has a question about AI, whether, Gartner or Forrester or IDC, all of those questions come to me. This is part of my job. And so I decided to automate part of my job by writing this multi-agent system. And in fact, it is having the desired effect. So, this is a multi-agent system. As I said, I wrote it in the Semantic Kernel Toolkit, and there are 4 agents in this set. The first one is the question-answer agent. And this is a pattern, by the way, that we call a maker-checker pattern. So at the top, we have my question-answer. And the question I asked is, does your service, that is Azure AI, currently offer video generative AI? And the answer, by the way, is no, not yet. Because soon we will have Sora in Azure, and then we will have video generative AI, but it's not there yet. So right now, the answer is no. Now, these agents have the ability to search the web, browse the web. I've given them that power. Like I said, you give them powers, and they figure out how to do it. So the first one's the question-answer agent. And it has answered the question, as I requested, both in English and in Romanian. But then I have my answer checker agent. And we have produced an argument. My agents are arguing with each other. So the answer checker agent says that the answer is incorrect. Because it says, as of the latest information, direct video generative AI capabilities are not available. The link checker says the links are okay, and the manager agent, because the answer checker agent said it was incorrect, rejects. If the manager agent rejects, that causes a rewrite cycle, so the question answer agent has to try again. And so he does try again. The question answer agent rewrites this in such a way as to satisfy our answer checker agent, who agrees, our link checker agent agrees, and the manager agent approves it. And if I had connected this to an Excel doc, because I've written this in such a way that I can give it a whole Excel doc of a whole giant questionnaire, and it will fill these out one by one with whatever it is that the manager agent approves. Now, I still check all of these answers manually. I still go through every single one. I'm not just going to give that verbatim to an analyst. But this allows me to do that part of my job much, much faster than anybody else at Microsoft. I can answer a 100-question questionnaire in an hour, where it might take Tomas here a week until he starts using my agent. So this is the power of a multi-agent. This is why you might want to use a multi-agent. And before I move on, let me give you a word of caution. Don't get too excited about multi-agents. Here's the thing, the little known fact about multi-agents is that the complexity of a multi-agent system grows exponentially with the number of agents. The more agents you have interacting with each other, the more likely it is to go off the rails. It only takes one of them to make the whole thing go nuts. For me, it's often my link checker agent. My link checker agent has one job. All he's supposed to do is look at the links and say, yes, these are good links, or no, they're not. But sometimes, once in a while, the link checker agent wants to offer an opinion. And then everybody goes off the rails. They start arguing with each other. It goes crazy. This happens in a multi-agent system. You have to be really careful about that. So use the least number of agents that you can to get the job done. Ideally, just one. It's much easier to manage that way. Now, there is a new class of agents that are coming on the scene. And I'm going to show it right now. So let me spin this up here. This new class of agents is called computer use agents. And I'm using one of them. There are a whole bunch of them. You may have heard of OpenAI Operator or Anthropic Computer Use. The one I'm using here is actually called browser use. And it can only really use stuff in a browser, but that also gives it some advantages. So, in a moment, this browser is going to come to life. Now, what I have asked it to do in Romanian is to go to eMag and go order me a pack of t-shirts. And now it's making a new tab. And by the way, no hands, I'm not touching this at all. So this is my agent figuring out how to do this. I'm going to touch this to get rid of that translation thing, so it gets out of the way. All right, but I'm not touching the actual browser. So okay, it's searching. It's searching for the medium-sized t-shirts on medium size. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. And it's going to work its way through this. So this is what a computer use agent does. Different computer use agents work differently. Some of them work only on vision, so they're just looking at the page or the application and trying to figure out where they can click. This one is a little bit different because you see these boxes that are getting rendered on the screen. Browser use is not just using vision, it's also using the DOM. It's using the structure of the page to determine where it can click. Because that way it gives it a kind of a backup. So if it can't quite see, so for example, like there's a lot of white space around this t-shirt over here, and if it wants to know where to click, well, it knows that in that box is a clickable region. And now, indeed, it is taking the action that I've told it to take. I specifically told it to get me a medium-sized t-shirt and put it in the cart. And that is what it is doing here. These things are coming. Now, what I'm showing you here is very new, very nascent. And so it looks kind of rough. But all of you are going to be using these kinds of things in a year and a half. A year and a half from now, say mid-2026, when you go to order clothes from eMag, or when you go to make travel reservations, you'll be using an agent like this. Rather than slogging your way through a travel website or digging yourself through eMag, you will actually speak to your phone or to your computer. These things are going to be built into every phone, every computer, every browser will have this kind of an agent built into it. And all of you and all of your grandmothers will use it. That's what's going to happen. But what that means concretely is, now sometimes, once in a while when I run this on eMag, it throws up a little thing that says, "Are you a robot?" And that foils my agent, because yes, my agent is a robot. But now these B2C companies are going to have to rethink that strategy. You don't necessarily want to block robots now if they're acting on your behalf. If they are your agent buying t-shirts for you or making travel reservations for you. And so if you are in a B2C company or you're working for a company that's doing something like this, anybody here work for eMag? I wouldn't be surprised if we had a couple of eMag developers in the room. Anyway, you're going to need to optimize these sites for agents so that agents don't get confused. Now, I did promise you that I had a triggered agent. How much time? Yeah, I got enough time for this. All right, I had a triggered agent. So, I got another one over here. Now, check this out. So, I got this marketing email over here. And I get a million of these things. And at the bottom here, we have an unsubscribe link, which I am not going to click. Instead, I am going to send this. I'm just going to forward this to my unsubscriber agent. Now, my unsubscriber agent, I have it running here in VS Code, and it's sitting here listening to an Azure Event Hub. So what's happening here is I have this email address wired to an Azure Event Hub. So when an email comes in, it throws an event at the Event Hub. And this agent is sitting here waiting for events to appear on that Event Hub, and it looks like one just did. So now my agent is waking up. And again, we will find that the browser wakes up. Now, unsubscribe pages are a great use case for this because every unsubscribe page is different. This is you can't do this with Selenium. You can't just automate this because it has to reason out. How do I do this? And here, it's got to put my email address, and it also has to check the box, which is figured out. But it's always different, right? Sometimes you got to enter the email address, sometimes you click the button, sometimes you click the box. It got it. It figured it out. And that's where you want to use an agent, is when you need reasoning, you need it to read something, to interpret something, to understand something. If you can do it deterministically, if you can code it, code it. Because agents make mistakes. Remember that earlier, when I had to make something on my calendar, it made a little mistake. It made it an hour off for whatever reason. So agents do make mistakes, and you have to bear that in mind. But when it comes to doing these kinds of reasoning tasks, there is no comparison. This really works. And last but not least, if I open up my GitHub Copilot now, so some of you may have seen GitHub Copilot, but you may not have seen this before, Copilot edits. So this is the agent mode that Tomas was talking about. Now, this is my repo in which I have been making these computer use agents, and it is, or it was, entirely in Python. But I asked it, write a version of this in C#. So now, many of you who are familiar with GitHub Copilot, you might know that up to this point, GitHub Copilot completes code for you. You're typing code and it writes more for you. It says, here's some code for you, right? And then we released Copilot Chat, where you could actually ask it questions. What does this code do? Or something like that. But this is different. Copilot edits the agent mode. So I said, write a version of this in C#, and what I mean is this whole repo, everything, this thing can make wholesale changes to an entire repository of code. And furthermore, Tomas also referenced O3. So I am using this, and you can see it at the bottom here, in O3 Mini mode. And in fact, I will tell you, I have been using O3 Mini pretty much exclusively. I mean, I actually do write all these demos myself, right? So I use this stuff to write this. And O3 Mini is fantastic compared to everything that's come before it. It's decently fast. It gets it right the first time. It's freaking great. This is a reasoning model that kind of thinks it through. And you can kind of see in here what it did. So it kind of reasoned out, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make some new files. I'm going to create a new file that replicates this functionality and all these things. It reasoned out what it was going to do. It made itself a plan. And then it literally wrote the files. And here they are. And I could just compile this right here in this IDE where I'm doing my development. I press the compile button, and there we go. So this is a software development engine that can make wholesale changes to code, and this is going to change how we do development going forward. So that is the quick introduction to agents and the future of AI. Thank you all very much. Thank you.